This is KGW News at noon.
Welcome to the News at Noon. I'm Drew Carney, and our lead story this afternoon involves a local middle school where all the kids are switching back to remote learning for 2 weeks. So this is happening at Reynolds Middle School in Fairview. And as Catherine Cook explains, the switch to distance learning has nothing to do with the COVID outbreak.
My daughter came home and said, "Mom, we're not going to go to school after Thursday for 2 weeks." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Here, I got this letter."
The news came as a surprise to most Reynolds Middle School parents, including Holly Keaton. Her daughter is in the 8th grade. Starting Monday, she and all Reynolds Middle School students will go back to remote learning for 2 weeks. They'll be off this Thursday and Friday so teachers can prepare. District officials say the reason for the in-person pause is not a COVID outbreak, but is related to the pandemic.
There were a lot of issues that some students, had a hard time adjusting to. It's kind of a snowball effect.
Steve Padilla is Assistant Director of Public Relations for the Reynolds School District. He says after months away from the classroom, COVID protocols, and stress, some students are struggling with the socialization skills needed for in-person learning.
But there were fights, there were safety issues, and those issues were causing a disruption in learning.
Padilla says the district will take the next 2 weeks to ensure Reynolds Middle School has the necessary social-emotional supports and safety protocols needed to provide a safe learning environment for everyone. He says options may include teachers on special assignment to help other teachers, and more staff watching and talking with kids in the hallways.
This isn't something that we've gone through before. So this is a learn as you go type of situation.
Many schools can relate.
This year just feels harder than last year.
Carly Strauss is a school psychologist for Salem-Keizer Public Schools. With students coming out of isolation and dealing with a wide range of emotions, she says disruptive behaviors can vary.
Something we are advocating for is more support for mental health professionals in our schools, because we are definitely in a mental health crisis right now.
You just kind of have to weigh it all,
For parents like Holly, it's just one more worry. She's already dealt with 3 school-related quarantines this year.
I want my daughter to get the best education she can. It's her last year before high school, so it's kind of a crunch year, but at the same time, I understand safety, and obviously student safety is paramount.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
You need to act now. You can't be scared of acting.
That's one student's reaction to Portland Public Schools' decision to delay a vote on a vaccine mandate for students. School district board members were scheduled to vote on that mandate last night, but instead they decided to hit the pause button on that decision. School district staff asked the board to wait 6 months before making any decisions on the mandate, saying that cases are no longer peaking and the county was getting closer to herd immunity. So here's some more comments from that student we just heard from at the start of this story, expressing their frustration with this decision to wait.
Bringing this up for debate again in mid-May with less than a month to school will accomplish nothing. In my opinion, it's simply a foolish idea, and the damage will already have been done by then. You need to act now. You can't be scared of acting.
Our public health agencies are not recommending a mandate at this time, and it's not that I want to punt it over to them, but from the beginning we've said we're going to follow public health guidelines, and I think we have done that throughout the pandemic.
The Portland Public School Board says it could use these extra 6 months to discuss protocols for quarantining, guidelines for athletes, and vaccine mandate exemptions. All right, we want to take a moment here on the show to show you these pictures from a crash on I-5 near Mount Vernon yesterday morning. The incredible part of this story is that the driver of that car wound up with only minor injuries. Washington State Patrol says the car was hit from behind by a semi-truck. You can see the force of the impact folded the car in half. The semi wound up on top of the car, which was a Nissan Altima. But again, the big story here is the fact that the driver of that car somehow ended up with only minor injuries. Next up here at noon, wildfire recovery, because it's still going on in the Santiam Canyon. But right now, there is some new support coming from a group of people who know firsthand what it's like to deal with wildfire devastation. Leaders with the California nonprofit After the Fire traveled to Oregon to see the burned areas of the Santiam Canyon for themselves. The nonprofit started after the 2017 wildfires in Northern California, And the idea behind the nonprofit is for fire survivors to help other fire survivors by sharing best practices and brainstorming ways for a faster recovery.
And they're making a really generous effort to help us learn from them and then also learn from our experience here in the Santiam Canyon.
We can get through to the other side, but we're only going to be able to do that if we do it together in meetings like this today. That's the way forward.
Again, the nonprofit is called After the Fire. They're working in several spots right now, both in Oregon and California, and they hope their growing network of people who have lived through wildfires will help other people who have survived wildfires moving forward. All right, one more story here before we check in with Rod Hill. This one is about our warming climate and the changes we could see from all that warming in the Pacific Ocean. Oregon State University researcher James Watson and former OSU researcher Stephen Johnson analyzed 50 years of ocean data and numerous climate models to see how ocean conditions will change as the climate warms. So they found oceans will change dramatically, and that means the species we see off the coast of Oregon and Washington will also change.
Given all of the commitments countries have made, we're still looking at nearly half the ocean being different from the ocean we know of the last 50 years.
Those scientists found that 60 to 87% of the ocean could see major changes. They're talking about more acidic, warmer water with less oxygen, and they say this will all happen by the year 2060. All right, Rod, we promised the audience you would be coming up here next. And there you are. What do you have for us weather-wise today?
Well, it's a nice day out there. We had the chilly start, and we'll take a look at those freezing temperatures coming up a little bit later in the show. For right now, if you've looked outside, you've seen some thin cloudiness. That's clouds being thrown ahead of this big low spinning in the Pacific. That is a rainmaker that will start to pick up steam for us locally tomorrow afternoon, then a big soak coming tomorrow night. We'll talk more about that coming up. In the meantime, though, it's just really going to be a nice, quiet, and very lovely day outside. Here's a look at some of the weather maps we're looking at. Cannon Beach right now, beautiful sunshine there. Temperatures at the coast, 51 degrees, not too bad. Here's a look at a similar sky from the Oregon Garden Resort down in Silverton. So that's a great panoramic shot looking off to the west and downtown Portland, with a similar partly sunny to mostly sunny skies, your preference to call it, 50 degrees. We'll be about 53 at 4 o'clock and then 46 at 8 o'clock. We stay dry tonight. We stay dry tomorrow morning, and then that batch of rain is coming. And again, we'll get more into that coming up. And the update for your weekend forecast as well.